Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today I want to tell you a story that doesn't shout at you, doesn't rush you, and doesn't try to impress you. It simply sits beside you, quietly, and tells you a truth most people learn too late in life. This is a story about pain, about trust, about silence, and about wisdom. It's called Never Share Your Pain with Everyone, and by the end of this story, you may start seeing people, conversations, and even your own heart a little differently. I remember a time in my life when I believed that if something hurt me, I should talk about it. I believed pain became lighter when shared. I believed people cared simply because they listened. And honestly, that belief didn't come from weakness. It came from hope. Hope that humans are kind. Hope that understanding exists everywhere. Hope that vulnerability is always met with respect. But life has a way of teaching lessons not through words, but through experiences that stay with you long after the moment has passed. I was going through a difficult phase. Not the kind of difficulty you can point at and explain easily, but the quiet kind. The kind that sits in your chest when you wake up. The kind that makes you stare at the ceiling at night. The kind that follows you into rooms full of people and still makes you feel alone. I didn't know how to handle it, so I did what many of us do. I talked. I shared. I opened up. At first, it felt good. People nodded. Some said they understood. Some gave advice. Some even said, "I'm here for you." And for a while, I thought I was healing. I thought I was being brave. I thought this was what strength looked like. But slowly, something strange started happening. I noticed that some people didn't really listen. They waited for their turn to speak. Others compared my pain to theirs, making it smaller without even realizing it. Some used my story as entertainment, retelling it when I wasn't around. A few stored my vulnerability like a weapon, ready to use it when it benefited them. And the most painful realization of all was that many people didn't actually care about my pain. They cared about how it made them feel in that moment. One day, I overheard a conversation that stopped me cold. Someone I had trusted was talking about my struggles casually, almost jokingly, as if it was gossip, not a piece of my life. I remember standing there, unseen, feeling something crack inside me. It wasn't anger. It wasn't sadness. It was clarity. In that moment, I understood something no book had ever taught me. Not everyone who listens cares, and not everyone who cares needs to know everything. That day changed how I saw the world. I began to realize that pain is powerful. When you share it with the wrong people, you don't lighten it. You multiply it. You hand pieces of yourself to people who may not know how to hold them, or worse, may not want to. I started paying attention. I watched how people reacted when others shared their struggles. I noticed the eye rolls. The forced sympathy. The hidden judgment. The silent relief that it wasn't happening to them. And I understood something important. People are not bad. They are just human. And humans have limits. Some people cannot handle your pain because they are still running from their own. Some people listen not to help, but to feel superior. Some people will never understand you because they don't need to. And that's okay. But it becomes dangerous when you expect depth from people who live on the surface. There was a moment later in my life when I faced an even bigger challenge. This time, the pain was heavier. The kind that makes your voice shake if you try to explain it. I felt the familiar urge to talk, to unload, to tell everyone what I was going through. But then I remembered that day. I remembered how it felt to hear my story in someone else's mouth. And I paused. Instead of sharing with everyone, I chose silence. Not the angry kind. Not the bitter kind. The intentional kind. I decided to observe instead of explain. To listen instead of speak. To protect my inner world instead of exposing it. And something surprising happened. The pain didn't destroy me. It shaped me. In silence, I learned to understand myself. I learned which thoughts were fear and which were truth. I learned that not every emotion needs an audience. Some feelings are meant to be processed, not performed. I started writing things down instead of saying them out loud. I started sitting with discomfort instead of escaping it through conversation. I started becoming my own safe place. This doesn't mean I never spoke to anyone. It means I became selective. I stopped sharing my deepest wounds with people who had not earned that trust. I realized that trust is not given because someone is friendly. It is earned because someone is consistent, respectful, and proven. There's a big difference between being open and being exposed. Being open is choosing the right moment and the right person. Being exposed is telling your story to anyone who asks. And life is not kind to those who expose their wounds without protection. I once met an older man on a long journey. We sat next to each other, strangers brought together by chance. At some point, he looked at me and said something I will never forget. He said, "The world doesn't need to know everything about you to respect you. Sometimes, mystery is safety." At the time, I didn't fully understand it. Now I do. When you share your pain with everyone, you give people power over how you feel. Their reactions start to matter too much. Their opinions start to shape your healing. And slowly, without realizing it, you begin to live from the outside in instead of the inside out. There is also another truth that no one talks about enough. When you constantly talk about your pain, you relive it. Over and over again. Each retelling pulls you back into the moment that hurt you. Silence, when used wisely, allows wounds to close. Not because you're pretending everything is fine, but because you're giving yourself space to heal without interruption. Some of the strongest people you'll ever meet are quiet about their struggles. Not because they don't feel pain, but because they've learned where pain belongs. They know that sharing everything doesn't make you honest, it makes you vulnerable in the wrong places. I used to think that if someone didn't listen to my problems, they didn't care about me. Now I know better. Care is not always about listening to pain. Sometimes care is about respecting boundaries. Sometimes it's about giving space. Sometimes it's about not asking questions that reopen wounds. There was a friend I had who never asked me what was wrong, even when it was obvious I was struggling. At first, I thought they were distant. But later, I realized something powerful. They were giving me dignity. They were letting me choose when and how to speak. They weren't forcing my pain into words before I was ready. That taught me another lesson. Silence can be a form of respect. As time went on, I noticed that the less I shared my pain with everyone, the more peaceful I became. My energy stopped leaking. My focus returned. I wasn't constantly replaying conversations in my head, wondering if I said too much or trusted the wrong person. I felt lighter, not because life became easy, but because I stopped carrying unnecessary emotional weight. This story is not telling you to isolate yourself. It's not telling you to suffer alone. It's telling you to be wise. To understand that your pain is valuable. It deserves care. It deserves protection. And not everyone deserves access to it. There will be moments when you truly need help. When the weight is too much to carry alone. In those moments, reach out, but reach out intentionally. Choose someone who listens without judging. Someone who doesn't rush to fix you. Someone who can sit with your pain without turning it into a story about themselves. But outside of those moments, learn the strength of quiet growth. Learn the power of handling things privately. Learn how much you can endure when you stop explaining yourself to people who don't understand you anyway. One of the biggest mistakes we make is assuming that being understood by everyone is necessary for healing. It's not. Healing happens when you understand yourself. When you accept what happened. When you decide to move forward, even if no one applauds you for it. I've learned that some chapters of your life are meant to be read by you alone. Not because they are shameful, but because they are sacred. Today, when something hurts me, I pause before speaking. I ask myself, does this person need to know this, or do I just need to feel heard? And if the answer is the second one, I turn inward. I write. I walk. I breathe. I give myself the attention I was seeking from others. And slowly, something changes. You stop feeling desperate for understanding. You stop chasing validation. You stop handing your story to people who don't know how to read it. This story is meant to wake you up gently. To remind you that your heart is not a public place. It's a home. And not everyone deserves to walk inside. There is strength in silence, wisdom in restraint, and peace in privacy. The world doesn't need to know everything you're going through for you to be strong. Sometimes, the bravest thing you can do is heal quietly and let your growth speak for itself. If you're listening to this and you're hurting right now, know this. You are not weak for feeling pain. And you are not wrong for wanting to talk about it. Just be mindful of who you talk to. Protect your story the way you would protect something precious, because it is. One day, you'll look back and realize that learning when to speak and when to stay silent was one of the most life-changing lessons you ever learned. And on that day, you'll understand why not everyone needed to know what broke you, because not everyone deserves to see what made you stronger. Thank you for listening to this story. If it resonated with you, take a moment to reflect, not to explain. Sometimes, silence is the beginning of wisdom.